Good day, guys. Abdulhamid Ango, and today I'll be discussing on intertemporal choice. So, intertemporal choice is an economic term describing how an individual's current decision on his consumption, what option affects what option will be available for him in the future. So, theoretically, if a person does not consume today, or if a person reduces consumption today, it will increase the amount of consumption you have, I believe, in the future, and vice versa. Many of the choices we make have consequences for the future. For instance, deciding how much money to spend in the present and how much to save up can greatly impact the life and quality of life of both now and in the future. And so, for firms, various investment decisions that they make involves the intertemporal choices. But for individuals, on the other hand, it's decisions made in their near term that can affect future financial opportunities. For individuals, basic mostly just like savings and retirement and present consumption. And if an individual who saves today consumes less, causing his or her current utility to decline. Over time, the savings grow, increasing the number of goods the individual can consume and therefore the person's future utility. So there's something called present bias. Most individuals tend to be limited by budget constraints that prevent them from consuming to the extent of their desires. Because as human beings, everyone wants to get the best quality for the most quantity. But when we're talking budget constraints, um, the consumption of every individual is limited by the amount of income that he gets. Nevertheless, behavioral finance theories generally find that present bias is common, suggesting that people prefer to spend now, regardless of the impact it might have in the later years. This preference for focusing on current consumption leads many individuals to make intertemporal choices that accommodate near-term needs and wants over long-term objectives. Evan Fisher developed a model to analyze how rational, forward-looking consumers make these consumption choices over a period of time. And for Fisher's intertemporal choice, he tried to illustrate three things. That's one, the budget constraints faced by the consumers. Two, their preferences between the current and future consumptions. That's which one they prefer to consume in current or in the future. And three, how these two, that's how the budget constraints faced by the consumers and how their preferences determine their household decisions regarding optimal consumptions and saving over an extended period of time. Modern economists have gone one step ahead of this and included borrowing constraints, also while analyzing consumption choice over time. So the intertemporal budget constraints. Rational individuals always prefer to increase the quantity or quality of the foods and services they consume. However, most people cannot consume as much as they like due to the limited income. In other words, people face a budget constraint that their consumption is constrained, is limited by the amount of income, the amount of money they have, because they can't consume more than they can afford, which sets a limit on how much they can spend. So since consumption decision taking over a period of time, consumers face intertemporal budget constraints, which shows how much income is available for consumption now and how much income they will receive in the future, which is going to be available for them in the future, and how they make their choices on whether to consume now with everything they have and and if they don't have budget constraints, whether they'll consume with everything they have in the future also in the present time. So this constraint reflects a consumer's decision on how much to consume today and how much to save up for the future. For and in budget constraint, we have the time indifference curve. Time indifference curve represents a consumer's preference regarding the consumption in period one and period in first period and second period. A time difference curve is a locus of points showing alternative combinations of the consumption at period one and consumptions at period two that yield the same satisfaction to the consumer. The slope of an indifference curve at any point indicates how much consumption two the consumer requires as compensation for sacrificing consumption in the first period by 1 unit. So the slope is the marginal rate of substitution between consumption in the first period and consumption in the second period. It is the desired rate of intertemporal substitution That's the rate at which the consumer is willing to substitute consumption at second period for consumption at first period while staying on the same indifference curve. So since consumption in the first period are not and second period are not perfect substitutes of each other, the pain involved in sacrificing your consumption in this present period and the gain you make by increasing the level of your consumption in the second period in the future are not the same at all. And all the points on the indifference curve is not a straight line. As a result, the it depends on the level of consumption in both the present period and the future period. And when consumption in the present period is high and consumption in your future period is low, at the same point, that means the consumers need only a little extra in consumption in the second period to sacrifice every extra unit of consumption in the second period. So since more satisfaction is always preferred to less, the consumer prefers higher indifference curve to the lower ones. So on the indifference curve, basically just the combinations of consumption in the first period and the second period that will yield the same amount of satisfaction for the consumer. So and the consumer won't go for the lower consumption lower point on the indifference curve. They usually pick the highest one where their utility is usually higher, and that's it, how they make their intertemporal choices and how it affects their day-to-day the consumption in the present period and consumption in the future period.